We're going to have to basically look at those kind of on a case-by-case basis and try to figure out what's the best way to move forward, kind of balancing the cost of doing so, what we're trying to achieve, and all those kinds of things.
Okay. Or let me change to another area. What departments in the city of Flint that the law department you feel is required to sit in on meetings? When and where? So city council, you guys be at our committee meetings and our council meetings, but I'm noticing during the budget hearings, you guys are not present at all. I'm not sure whether you guys are there sitting in the planning commission meetings. I'm not sure if you guys are sitting in on the ombudsman, ethics and accountability board meeting. How is that determined? Because I know it's an expense added when they are, I don't know if they getting paid hourly or salary. The attorneys that work up under you, how is that determined?
A kind of a combination of assessment of which bodies or boards need legal, basically legal to be present, and frankly, kind of tradition. The law department tries to make sure that somebody is here for all of the formal meetings of the city council and its committees. That's kind of always been the practice while I've been with the city, and I don't see any reason to change that. There are attorneys who attend kind of in that similar support capacity to the Ethics and Accountability Board, the Human Relations Commission, the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board, the Historic District Commission. Am I forgetting anything?
There's a water board, water commission.
Yeah, but these hearings, for example, are kind of, I don't know, they're not so much a formal meeting of the council as like a committee and your normal Monday nights are, or a special meeting as they're more informal, and so kind of the law department's traditionally not, basically attended these except when we're at this table here. And so we're always, open to have that discussion if there are questions asked, but, these are not decision-making meetings for this body. They're really informational for you to hear from the various department heads, so.
One of the reasons why I asked that, because just recently we had a situation at council where you gave us a legal opinion, and the Ethics and Accountability Board came out with their opinion. And one of the things I was just wondering, if you gave us the same opinion as someone that's sitting in, you have an attorney sitting in the Ethics and Accountability Board, when they was deliberating on the council's decision, are you guys working together as you giving us legal opinion and the attorney giving the Ethics and Accountability Board legal opinion? Wouldn't they have the same legal opinion that you gave the council to share with the Ethics and Accountability Board? Therefore, they have the same opinion that you gave us, so we can be on one accord? Because I was not understanding how they were coming out with a public, whatever they wanted to call against the city council, when we was only going based on the opinion that you were.
Yes.
So do you guys work together on that?
We do. Formal legal opinions, there's a process in our
Okay.
office where they're, essentially reviewed before they're issued.
Okay.
And that's kind of been the practice as long as I've been with the department, and I don't see that changing
So when you,
ever.
I'm not to be cutting you off.
Yes.
So when you say is it review with all of your colleagues or just you? Yeah.
No, I mean, the final decision, and because of the way that the charter says, the final decision is that of the city attorney. In that case, that would be me. Prior to me, it was, Angela Wheeler who would I could write something, but at her request, but if she disagreed with it, she was entirely within her rights to rewrite it, deep six it, reassign it to somebody else. That was entirely her discretion. I think, yeah, the role of the law department is to, when it comes to advising the city is to, and its officials and boards, is to provide our best opinion as to the law, and to provide, which is the definition of legal advice. What are the rights of our client? What are the the legal dangers faced by our client? But ultimately, I tried to be, I guess I've tried to walk that line of where my job is to give you all legal advice, but I try not to insert myself into the policy side of that, because ultimately those policy decisions are for this body to make, or for the whatever city departments or the city boards are to, within their remit, for them to make. Essentially, there's very few situations in which I would be comfortable and where I feel that the law would require me to take some action that was directly contradictory. So ultimately, I guess a client is not required to take their attorney's advice, I guess. But obviously I would prefer it if, we give you our advice that you would consider it, but if, given our advice that you've considered the options and you decide that the risks are worth the potential reward, or that's essentially the client's decision.
And my last piece, and I'm going to turn it back over to the chair, is there any outstanding, pending litigation that the city is facing or have completed that there is a possibility for reimbursement? And I'm going to give you some examples, and you don't have to get into detail. The Flint water crisis, the city of Flint having to fight the water crisis up under the emergency manager. Being that we were under the emergency manager, all of the funding that the city of Flint received when it came down to settlement of the Flint water crisis, were there any reimbursement to the law department on any legal matters that you guys had to fight dealing with the Flint water crisis, being that we was up under the emergency manager?
In regards to that specific, with the settlement for the Flint water crisis litigation, I'm kind of trying to be careful here. I would guess, to the extent that the city had the insurance coverage that would have covered some of our legal expenses, the city, we decided to essentially contribute that as the city's contribution to the settlement, to essentially make that money available to the residents as part of the settlement. In terms of whether there are other potential sources, I think that gets into issues that I'm not entirely comfortable discussing in an open session like
Okay.
this.
Well, let me conclude with my opinion as a city council, and you don't have to take what I say. I think personally that we need to look at persuading, dismantling Public Act 436, which the emergency manager was brought into the city, which destroyed our city and put us in a worse financial crisis than when they first came in. And we have a lot of different reasons. I also think that this is something that hopefully we can explore, seeing if we can file a lawsuit to dismantle Public Act 436. The other one is the bond issue dealing with the city of Flint. I wasn't here when I heard some young men came from Detroit to do a presentation, but I'm not sure with the emergency manager coming in, taking over the city of Flint due to a financial crisis. I don't believe that we was in a financial stable situation to sign on any kind of bond deal when it comes down to the KWA being brokered, and we having to enter into a bond when we was already up under emergency manager because of the financial crisis. So those are two things that hopefully in the near future we can look at possibly exploring to see, because if I'm not mistaken, when we pay back GLEWA, part of that payment goes towards the bond deal that we have to pay, and I think GLEWA pay KWA on that situation. So I think we allegedly may be up under a fraudulent bad deal that we should have never got ourselves into because we was up under financial crisis. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. Do you want to respond?
I think anything that I could say involved in regards to that would likely also be something that I would not want to discuss in an
We
open
don't have to
session.
discuss it.
With-
And-
With all due respect,
Yeah.
it gets to, you start getting into specific legal
Yeah,
claims of
I-
the city.
Because we might end up having to get into a fight when we come down to that one right there. Not me and you physically, but I mean, that's a big deal to me and a whole bunch of other people. But I just would love to see Public Act 436 dismantled, and I would love to see us not have to pay anything on this bond deal because we should have never got in it. My opinion only. Allegedly. All right. I'm
Thank you,
done.
Councilman Murphy. Councilman Pfeiffer, you had another question?
I just had a follow-up to what Councilman Murphy said about,
Microphone?
I just had a follow-up to what Councilman Murphy had to say about you cutting your budget. So what do we spend on outside counsel every year? Do you know?
I don't have that total for you right now. It's the last 6 years have been atypical for the law department because of the water crisis. But even when the kind of water litigation outside counsel costs are removed, the city still incurs pretty significant outside counsel bills. Outside counsel is expensive.
Right. My point is, if we expand on the internal, then we can save on that. So even though you're asking for more headcount, it's going to potentially be long-term savings for the city. So it would be less
Yeah.
less expenditures for outside counsel. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The State Bar does a survey of attorney salaries, kind of statewide and also by regions. And kind of in Genesee County in our region, an independent attorney who's, not practicing what we would be retaining as outside counsel, the average rate for that attorney of a decent amount of experience is going to be in the area of $250 or so an hour. We do negotiate those rates downward so that we can get the best deal for the city. So we're often paying less than that, but even paying less than that, we're still probably talking at least twice as much as what an in-house attorney would cost.
And my last question, Madam Chair, is what account are those outside attorneys paid out of?
I believe it's the Suits and Settlements Fund.
Suits and Settlements Fund?
The Suits and Settlements Fund, I believe.
Do we have, what's the dollar value on that? Madam Chair, do we have the dollar value or the account number or the account balance for that fund?
We probably have to get that from finance. I do not have it with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact fund number. It's whenever we bring a settlement resolution before the body, it always specifies that the funds will be paid out of whatever fund, and that's essentially the fund that it's coming from. There's other portions within that.
So the
but-
settlement and the outside attorney all come from whatever fund?
Yes, basically.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Pfeiffer. Councilwoman Lewis, would you Do you have any questions?
Thank you. So I do have a few. So my first question is dealing with like a lot of our antiquated cases. So one of the cases I'm referring to is the Kate Fields case, because she's no longer on council and we're still paying and going through the process. So what are the plans as far as those go? Because clearly they're in the budget.
We do basically budget for that cost. I don't want to speak too much in the specifics about any particular case because especially when it's ongoing litigation like that. I will say kind of generally that even though, former Councilmember Fields is no longer in office, there are legal issues that were raised in that case that basically I think warrant appellate review in case essentially a similar situation were to ever occur in the future. It's important that we have clear rulings from the Court of Appeals that would guide our local courts on how to rule on those issues.
Okay, so you all are still working through that, so it's not over. Okay, very well. And then my other question is, so what do you need to make your work better?
I guess that would depend on how you define better, but in terms of making us more effective and able to do more things for the city, I would say honestly the primary thing, and this is not just because it's in the budget, but I think it's in the budget because our primary issue is that having more staff allows us to basically engage in more activities. When it comes down to it, our current staff can only do so much at one time. And when you start overloading our attorneys, things have the potential to get missed. We have to reprioritize things that would otherwise be able to be handled in a more timely fashion, have to get pushed back because essentially there are things that we have to do within certain timeframes. And that we, as much as we would like to be able to prioritize other things, if judges tell us to be someplace or to appear someplace or to do whatever write whatever briefs by a certain date, as a general rule, we have to basically fulfill those deadlines that are being imposed upon us. The law creates other requirements for basically other kinds of legal things that we have to do. It's been a constant challenge to basically make sure that we are handling the city's business, legal business, and that it requires basically continually reprioritizing to make sure that nothing important is being missed, that the concerns of this body, that the other departments in the city are being addressed, and that basically we're keeping the city moving forward on a legal basis.
Okay, so my next question is along the same line, but it's going to go the other way. So if asked, could you cut this budget by 10%?
Could I cut the budget by 10% if asked? Almost certainly. Could I do so and still provide the same level of services that I'm talking about and in the same kind of time and do that in as timely a fashion? Almost certainly not. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation in there, and I'm sorry for having the almost in there, but it's just the city's been operating its legal department on a, as cut to the bone for years. And in terms of when we start cutting some things, something else pretty much has to fall by the wayside or be delayed. And if you do too much of that, there's the potential for real issues.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will that conclude your questions?
Yes.
I know that Councilman Mays is here. I know he'll probably have some questions, but I will go ahead and start because generally I go last. Probably as soon as I start, he'll probably walk in. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here, and I have a list of questions. And I generally I shoot everybody emails in your department, and they're very timely and I appreciate the good dialogue. One of the questions, Attorney Kim, how long have you been here with the city?
I've been just under 7 years. I think I started May 10th in 2015. I'd have to look up my personnel file to find out the exact date.
So about 7 years, no, that's fine. And deputy attorney, am I correct?
Yes.
You've been here, I believe, a year, you stated. Councilman Mays, I can, if you would like to ask your questions, I'll hold mine for yours, sir. Would you like the floor?
Yeah.
I yield to you, sir.
Attorney Kim, how much have you budgeted for damage claims? How do you do that?
I believe that would come out of the suits and settlements budget, not in the department budget.
Beg your pardon?
It comes out of the suits and settlement fund, not out of the law department's budget.
Okay, how much is in there?
I'm not sure if I have that information at hand.
Can you get that information before the callbacks on May the 12th?
I believe you could get that information directly from finance.
Say what?
Finance would have that information.
Where can you get it?
I can request that finance be able to provide it to you.
I would appreciate that. Is that a problem?
No, I'm just telling you that I don't maintain that information personally, that information
But
would
you
have to
do
come from the
spend out of there, correct?
We draw from that fund when resolving lawsuits and.
And
those
so
sorts of
can you
matters.
find out how much is in there?
I can pass that request along to the finance department.
I would appreciate it. And I'll check with finance as well. Do you know what you had in there last year?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, because you have been a little stingy on them damage claims. I got a tree that done fell on somebody's house, and I'm telling you, I'm going to bring it before council. I don't know what they'll do, but I'm very interested in that budgeted amount. So you say you don't know what it is, but you'll check to see. We don't have staff here. If we had staff here, I would make a formal referral to find out what that is. And so we'll see what happens. So right now, I'm going to rely on you and see if finance deny that request from you, and then we'll see if we call Mr. Whittaker back. That's an important amount of money for me. Y'all probably went over this already. How many staff attorneys do you have?
Are you asking how many staff attorneys do we currently have?
Yeah.
Currently, there are 5, including myself.
And you budgeted for these same 5?
Are you talking about the next year's fiscal year budget?
Yeah, the upcoming fiscal year.
To put that in a little bit more context, the current authorized staff of the department is 6 attorneys. We are requesting that be increased to 8.
To 8?
Yes.
And I'm concerned about that because I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you spread their work around. I know I've had problems as a council person in certain areas dealing with the law department as far as contracting out. How much did you spend in the budget last year? Do you know contracting out?
I don't have that number to hand.
Okay, well, see if you can get that number. Because in some cases, I think you conflicted, and I want to make sure that you have the adequate budget to contract out when we need. I know you might not think that you conflicted, but I'm definitely thinking in some areas you have a conflict of interest. So let's see if you can get that figure of how much you spent last year contracting out. You don't know?
I do not have that information off the top of my head.
Is that in your budget for this upcoming year?
As I explained earlier, the outside counsel bills are paid out of a separate fund.
Okay, whose budget is that in?
That would be the suits and settlements fund, I believe.
The same fund that I'm looking for damage claims.
Yes.
Why wouldn't that be in your budget?
You'd have to ask the finance department about why it's structured that way. I would be speculating as to
Well,
exactly
you know,
why they
we
do it.
set the budget. We can make amendments. If we set the budget and can make amendments, we could amend the budget to put the damage claims in your budget. We can amend the budget to put the outside legal counsel in. Do you have any idea what you need or want?
Need or want for what, sir?
for those areas.
For which areas?
Sir, I just said settlement of damage claims, and I also said outside legal counsel. Those two areas.
As I also mentioned earlier, this year's budget, that's the law department budget, was created prior to my assuming the duties of acting city attorney.
Okay, you the city attorney now. We've got until the first Monday in May to amend this budget. Have you looked at any amendments or necessities in your budget at this time?
I am comfortable with the budget as it has been presented to this body.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and look at the tape. I'm gonna find out what all you talked about. You might be comfortable with it, but we have a duty and a responsibility to set the budget in order to get service, not only for the residents, but for the legislative branch as well. And so we have a vested interest in how we want to set that budget. You want to go from 6 to 8. I want to find out if one of them 8 is assigned to the legislative branch. How do you plan to structure that?
As I also mentioned earlier, the city council, along with the mayor, would both have their primary contact be the city attorney.
Do you have that primary contact person set up now?
Yes, that's myself.
Who is the primary contact for the legislative branch, city council?
That would be myself.
And who is the contact primary for the executive branch?
That would also be myself.
That's why I say in some cases you seem to be conflicted.
I think, yeah, I would agree that there, in some certain circumstances, the city council and the mayor can be at odds to the point where there is a conflict of interest. For example, in the recent hearings, it was necessary essentially for the city attorney's office to retain separate counsel to represent the members of the administration and to provide advice to the city council, while the law department itself played no part in the hearing aside from essentially once we'd retained those counsel, that was our duty. That doesn't mean that, I guess, yeah, but that kind of situation has to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis.
I think on a case-by-case basis, you was conflicted when it came to this city council and you was trying to get your appointment as it relates to the office of the president. And so I've said in budget hearings, and I've heard my colleagues talk about specific instances when it comes to the NSO officers and blight. To me, it's more governmental operations, but since they've done it, I'm gonna do it with you. You don't think you was conflicted when you issued a legal opinion that did not include the removal from office forfeiture clause in the charter? You overlooked that. You wrote that opinion for the council, correct?
To answer your questions in order, no, I don't think I was conflicted out from writing that. No, I don't believe I overlooked anything, and I did write that opinion.
I know for a fact you overlooked some stuff, and it'll be up in the circuit court. We'll see what the circuit court say. I believe that you're conflicted, and I believe in certain conflicted case. That particular case you was trying, in my opinion, play to the majority of the council to get your appointment. That's going to always stay in the forefront of my mind. You don't know who determines when there's a conflict. You?
It's,
The answer is yes, it's you, right?
yes, it is my ethical responsibility to continually make that assessment and to act as my experience and training tells me that I'm
And that's
ethically
a
required to do.
concern. That's a concern with me. So the budget that you have in front of you, if we don't amend your budget as it relates to damage claims, if we don't itemize your budget as it relates to legal staff for the city council, and if we don't amend your budget as it relates to outside legal counsel, you are the person who will decide that. Then what you do, go to Whittigan and ask for the money on a case-by-case basis?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, sir.
You say Whittaker holds the purse strings for you as it relates to outside legal counsel and damage claims. That's what I'm understanding you to say to me, correct? It's not a hard question.
I'm not quite sure if I understand exactly what
Okay,
you're
I'm going
asking.
to break it down. You a legal man. You've just told me in this hearing, and you're not under oath. We in just an informal hearing. You told me when it comes to damage claims, you don't know how much is in that budget because Whittaker controls that, correct?
No, I told you that I don't know the amount of that's in the suits and settlement fund off the top of my head, and that if you're looking for that information, you could ask finance for that information because that's their role.
So to make a long story short, it's not in your budget.
It is not in the law department budget as it's set forth in the packet.
We might want to move it there. We have the opportunity to amend his budget as well as yours. You do understand that, correct?
I understand that the city council can amend any budget that is brought before it.
Yeah, everything is on the table. Do you object to us putting that in your budget?
I think the current law department budget as it's presented to this body is essentially an operational budget. It's to fund the operations of the law department, to pay the salaries of the staff who work there, to pay the operational costs. I'm not a finance person, but it seems to me that essentially mixing that with this, other funds is potentially problematic.
You're the only person that draw down from that settlement fund budget. Wouldn't that be a fair statement?
I don't believe so. I believe the city maintains a number of insurance policies, such as our excess liability policy and other such things that are basically sourced by the finance department directly that we don't have any particular input into. All we do is
Attorney Kim, I'm going to do this publicly. I'm going to request that you draw up a resolution to amend the budget. Attorney Gurley, you taking that note? I want you to draw up a resolution to amend the budget to put a amount certain in your budget for damage claims. I also want you to draw up a resolution to amend the budget to put funds in your budget for outside legal counsel. Do you think you can handle that?
we can, of course, draft any resolution that is requested. It would seem that that would be premature until this body decides what amendments that it wants to make to the budget.
This body,
because
isn't it a fair statement that any one individual council can request your department to draft a resolution and introduce it? You don't need the whole body to do that, do you?
That is true. However, I
It's
think
real true.
I think in this case, there's, you might recall that several weeks ago there was a resolution that had two potential amendments to that. In order to consider a resolution with two separate potential amendments, four different resolutions have to be drafted and placed before the body. Frankly, given the number of potential changes that this body could decide to amend the budget with, the number of resolutions that might need to be drafted are potentially just extreme. And I think in terms of coming up with, once this body has decided what amendments it wishes to make, if any, to the budget, we can work with the council to basically come up with a resolution that codifies those proposed amendments into a single resolution. Doing that doing that for all 9 individual, doing a separate resolution for every change that could be requested by any council member has the potential to essentially overload the
Attorney
department with
Kim,
work.
you took an oath of office when you became city attorney, correct?
That is correct.
And part of that oath of office includes living up to the charter, correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, don't the charter say that your office is responsible to individual council people when it comes to their request to draft resolutions? You keep referring to the body. I'm referring to one council person. It's 9. We're trying to set a budget so you can keep up with 9 council people. You can keep referring to the body, but the body will vote up or down a resolution once you assist in drafting it. And it wouldn't matter if it was 20 of them. Would that be a fair statement?
Again, I'm simply pointing out that the logistical issues of trying to draft a separate resolution or draft resolutions that would incorporate any possible change that might be brought by every single council member.
Attorney Kim, ain't that your responsibility to draft a resolution that an individual council person requests? Isn't that a fact?
That would be one of the responsibilities of the law department.
Okay, and it's written, correct? We didn't make this up for individual council people. It's written. That's your job in your department, correct?
That is one of the responsibilities of the law department.
Okay, it's one of them, but it's one, correct?
That is correct.
So if I want 12 resolutions dealing with budget amendments from the police department to your department, and I come to you with a list, it's your duty and responsibility to draft them up or help draft them up, correct?
Well, I think at that point I would come to this body and point out that if you have 12, if one council member requests 12 separate amendments to the budget, each in a resolution form, I'm not a mathematician, but I believe that would require drafting 144 separate resolutions to incorporate all possible combinations of those 12. It seems like that would be, a
Something that you would want to change the charter to keep you from having to do. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think that this body can come up with a procedure for how it wants to deal with making amendments that would not create that level
What
of...
about the charter? You took an oath to serve as individual council persons. Each council person might have a resolution. Your job is to budget, and that's what I'm trying to see. You can contract out. Do you think it's 100 attorneys in the city of Flint?
I don't know how many attorneys there
I
are.
don't know neither, but if you try to give me math of 100 resolutions and you have the ability to contract out, get a lawyer to do 10 of them. All we know is that budgets is the key part of our responsibility. We can change it, amend it, or vote for it to be the same. And the only way we amend it is with resolutions that your office is dictated to do. Now, I don't want to hear you tell me if I bring you 12 resolutions or 14 or 20, it's problematic. What's problematic would be a violation of the charter. And if your office or you, since you say you the one that responds to council, if you didn't do it, you would be in violation of the charter, don't you think?
Again, I think that this body can decide how, I think the inaccuracy in your statement is that the only way for this body to decide what amendments it wants to make to the budget is for each individual amendment to be the subject of its own separate resolution. I think there are ways in which this body can deliberate and can decide how it wants to amend the budget, that and can then come to a consensus on what the final amended budget that the city council wishes to adopt, and we can then work with the council to make sure that there is a single resolution that incorporates all of the amendments that have been proposed and agreed to by this body.
Madam Chair, I'm going to get up off of this and move on. And then I'm going to wait to see why the ombudsman and others sit here if you're going to try to deny us access and our ability based upon the written language of the charter. And if you do, it's going to be a problem. Because the charter dictates to you that any individual council person can come to you for amendments. Now, we're dealing with a multi-million-dollar budget. We're facing a $15 million deficit. You want to work for the administration, and you want to work for this council. And now you say you know you got a 9-member body. You know that the charter dictates that any individual council person can bring you a resolution to assist in draft. Now you want to talk about it's problematic and you want this body to deliberate. You're the same one that said this body can deliberate outside of a posted meeting 3, 4, 5 at a time. Yeah, you said it, and it's recorded. That's not true. We don't have to deliberate on individual resolutions. I don't have to deliberate with this body outside of an open meeting to get you to draft amendments for resolutions. If I want an amendment for the police department in order to put 300 cameras up at 3.6 million, your job is to draft it. If I want an amendment to hire civilians to go through 8,000 or more complaints backlogged in the Detective Bureau, and it costs $1 million for them civilians, your job is to draft it. My job is to bring it and let the majority of council vote it up or down. It's not your job to try to facilitate a consensus on what I request you to do. And I can assure you, I'm gonna bring you 12 or 14 resolutions. Public safety is going to be number one. I'm going to bring you resolutions dealing with buying trucks and equipment for blight and hiring personnel with CDL license. I would suggest that you gear up, get ready to contract out, or do whatever you have to do in that department to honor the request of an individual council person or persons when we bring you a resolution. This one is time sensitive. These will be time sensitive because we have a mandate, just like you, in the charter to do this prior to the first Monday in June, correct? Madam Chair.
Yes, President
And
Councilman.
so I don't know how you're going to do it, but it's a way to do it. You wanted that department. Last year, I brought 12 or 14 resolutions. It wasn't problematic. Angela Wheeler was the city attorney. I don't know if you worked on them or not. Who's second in line seniority-wise in your department right now?
That would be Chief Deputy City Attorney Joanne Gurley, who's seated to my
Miss
right.
Gurley. So if something happened to you, she would be the acting city attorney.
That is correct.
And so what I want to do, I was glad she was taking notes. Probably before the end of this week, I'm going to give you a list of proposed resolutions. I would suggest very strongly and matter-of-factly, I don't need a consensus from my colleagues to request resolutions be brought. All I have to do is give them to you and wait to see what comes out of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Mays. Before I start my questions, are there any more questions? Okay. I want to go back to Ms. Attorney Gurley. You said there were about 40 damage claims currently right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What is the average turnaround for a claim?
It probably would depend on the complexity. It could take a few weeks to months, depending on whether the requested information is received by our paralegal and how quickly that information can be received.
Okay, and then one of the issues that has come up is the $1,000. Is that a fixed capped? Because I saw one came out was a little higher, because some people, residents they don't have insurance. I know that covers the deductible, but if a resident doesn't have homeowner's insurance and they don't have a deductible, how are we handling those claims?
If I could
Yes.
answer that, ma'am. Each damage claim has to be assessed kind of on an individual basis. As a kind of a default, I don't want to say default position, that's the wrong word. Essentially, the purpose behind the damage claims process is to provide a basically way for the city to resolve claims before we have to have a lawsuit and deal with a lawsuit in court. There are claims that can be brought that, frankly, if we could deal with them early, we can basically then avoid the cost of litigating that in the future. Once lawyers get involved, costs go up. It's just, lawyers are expensive, as we've kind of discussed. So one of the assessments that we do is whether or not the claim has, I guess, legal merit. We do an assessment as to what the likelihood of, if this claim was to turn into a lawsuit, what would the exposure of the city be? What would the likely outcome be if we have to litigate this, and what would it cost us to litigate this? Even though we try to defend as many cases as we can in-house for that cost control measures that we were discussing earlier, there's still a cost. The attorneys have to spend time working up a case. Discovery incurs cost if we have to. Many of these types of cases, if there's somebody who's been injured in some way, you need experts you need a doctor to examine the claimant to verify that they have an injury, what kind of injury they have. If they're, repair bills, all those things require things to work up and take time. So if we can resolve those on the front end before they become a lawsuit, we can ultimately reduce the city's exposure to this costs.
So what about basically, and I appreciate you going into depth, I'm just more basic. Tree fall on a house, they don't have home insurance.
The
The
difficulty
tree
with-
does $8,000 worth of damage, and they bring, they submit to you the estimates, 3 reasonable estimates with the lowest bid, the 3 lowest. How do we handle that?
Here's the kind of
Because 4
difficulty
zip
with-
codes in the city of Flint are red line.
Right. Here's the difficulty with those claims in particular. Under state law, the city has essentially immunity from a broad variety of claims. The reason we can still get sued for certain types of claims is that under state law, there are exceptions to that. For example, there is an exception for automobile accidents. If a police officer or a street worker is driving their vehicle and hits somebody else, that's clearly inside an exception to the city's immunity. A tree falling on someone's house,
The city trees.
Even if it's a
Yes,
city
I'm only
tree-
speaking to the city trees because
Yeah.
those trees are a problem right now.
even if it's a city tree, it is 100% certain that the city would prevail in any lawsuit. Because the only exception that there's one exception that comes close, and courts have examined that particular issue as to whether the city is responsible if a tree in the right-of-way falls over or whatever, and it is, I can say with 100% certainty that we can get that case dismissed immediately.
What
Without-
about the homeowner who has a tree on their house, or they don't have the money to remove it, or and it's a city tree? Because this is a problem.
And
I
that's-
mean, I had
we're-
someone call me about a tree that was hit because of a high speed, they were chasing someone.
Right.
And this wasn't my ward, and they wanted to know who do you get in contact with to get the tree up? And it was the city side,
Right,
the
yeah.
city tree.
And that's one of the reasons why we're conscious of, the kind of the issues that a lot of residents are facing. And that's why the law department, in the past has essentially, been willing to work with residents who have insurance, they can make a claim on their insurance. That's why you have homeowners insurance generally. And, the city can cover the deductible as, can choose to do that. The difficulty comes if you're going to try to basically make that a blanket exception is that you start exposing the city to potential damages that, frankly, I would have to do a lot of work to assess. Because even if a city tree falls on and there's the immediate damage, but then, are we then saying that the city is somehow liable if it falls on a car and the person can't get to work? And are we then liable for the lost wages or for, if the car had emotional connection, it was a car that was given to them by their by a family member as a 16th birthday present.
Most
Are we-
homeowners just want, if it falls on their roof, they want the roof repaired.
And
I mean, they want the basics. I mean, I get the other legal part, and I want to keep it kind of general, because with my list, I just think that we need to make sure, because people, they're calling, and they're coming to city council. So I don't know if we have something that's, well, you're saying it's case by case,
Yep.
but we really do have to look at the fact that those zip codes, and they're all predominantly, actually, I believe it's over in the Fourth Ward also, but they're predominantly minority and lower income based, and they can't afford to fix those roofs. Or worse, if a city tree falls in your yard, you have to have that, those stumps are big. I mean, not even stumps, I mean, those trees are, the base of them, they're big.
Well, I mean,
So-
if a city tree falls in someone's yard, I think that would be a question for probably the streets department.
Street, I get to
To
clean it up.
remove the tree.
But if it's damaged, like slightly damaged, if it's their gutters, if it's their roof. But I'm gonna move on for that because
Right.
Point of information, Madam Chair.
what's your point of
You
information?
stopped short of saying what was an exception. Could you elaborate on that exception?
No, I think what I was trying to say was basically we've, tried to work with claimants who, to, essentially cover that gap between their homeowner's insurance and their deductible for those situations. But that's different than essentially, essentially assuming the position of turning the city into the insurer of the city, of the residents of the
Now,
city.
we are self-insured, is that correct?
We are self-insured, yes.
Okay. And I'm gonna, did you get your question answered,
Yeah,
Councilman
let me
Mays?
do one more point of information through you to Attorney Kim. Can you bring us a monthly or quarterly report on what you paying out and what you turning down as it relates to damage claims?
I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. No, I mean, yes,
Do
we
you-
could do that.
And Councilman Mays, I've been keeping I'll add that in my email. I had your other questions too, but I'll add that in there also to request that.
And Madam Chair, because I just had a resolution drawn up for the tree on Edward Street, and I'm going to be introducing that resolution to council, and I'll see what council do, because ultimately, it comes to a decision of council, even if they litigate. It's council who settles.
Thank you, Councilman Mays. I'm going to move on to FOIA requests. The city was sued, and I believe last year, maybe January, is it Mackinac?
Yes, I'm familiar with that case, the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, I believe. Or I
Thank you,
think that's the-
Mackinac Center for, yes, thank you. And so with getting out our FOIAs in a timely effort to where we were sued for not getting FOIAs out, period, or some felt that they were denied. Have we rectified that issue to where and what is like our time? I know some FOIAs may be more comprehensive with what people are asking for, but have we fixed that part? Because people are not, you hear people say, I didn't get a FOIA, or I didn't get this information. And are we making sure we're doing that in a more expeditious way so that we won't be sued again because the city was sued?
Yes, we are. Yeah. I don't know if I want to go as far as say the problem has been rectified, but we've addressed the problem. We put measures in place to make sure that FOIA requests are tracked and responded to in a timely fashion. One of the reasons why I'm looking forward to having the last of our gaps filled in our staffing later this month is that I intend to have one of the personnel who's going to be starting as a paralegal basically assigned to basically oversee the FOIA process citywide, so that there's one person who can do that with, and be able to draw upon the rest of the staff as resources as needed, but that they'll avoid kind of the things that have gotten overlooked in the past or that have been unnecessarily delayed.
Okay.
That isn't to say that everybody's been happy with the request,
Yeah.
because there are obviously
Some are more
plenty
detailed.
of reasons why the city can deny or deny in part FOIA requests. But we are trying to do everything that we can to make sure that the city responds to those requests in a timely fashion.
Okay. And just for the public to know, what is the beginning cost of a FOIA, or what is the cost? I know they can, depending on how many pages, but just so that the public will know.
That I can't answer off the top of my head. It's actually a fairly complicated question because state law requires that we essentially assess costs for FOIAs breaking it down into a whole bunch of itemized categories with, in terms of things. So I just can't give you an answer off the top of my head about what a FOIA costs generally.
Okay, and I'll move on down to that. I'll move past that. So with us facing a $15.8 million deficit plus, because we have approved a contract, so we really don't know what our costs will be. With our deficit, we do know it's at least $1 million of 15.8. And you want to add 2 more well-needed positions, and we may have to tighten our belts a little bit. I mean, have you, and I believe one of my colleagues mentioned that I think that we need to kind of look at, other ways, maybe taking in interns, maybe, I don't know if that's something, or other ways to get some help. Because at some point, we cannot state passing a budget. I understand your request, and I appreciate the work you do, and I think, I don't know if the wage study was out, but it's a lot of work you do for that amount of money, and I appreciate, our law department for that. A lot of people don't want to work for Flint, and that's unfortunate. But just to put out there, that we are facing that deficit. I know you need those 2 more people, but unless we get a Brinks truck with the door open, we can pull out for each department, we're gonna have to cut someplace.
Point of information, Madam Chair.
Councilman Mays, yes.
Oh, those 2 people in the budget already, or he requesting they're in the budget?
It's in his request.
So
In the
that
budget.
would be an amendment, or they're already in there?
They're already in.
They're already in?
And Angela, Attorney Wheeler prepared this budget, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, and I'm going to move on past that. The opioid crisis, we received, I believe, 8.8 million, or we're going to receive it. And that was, what year was that lawsuit filed in?
I can't tell you the exact year that it was filed in, but we are expecting some of the proceeds to be arriving within the next year.
Okay, was it filed under this administration or the previous administration? Or the previous one? Because we've got a serious opioid crisis.
It was definitely filed in the previous administration. I couldn't
Okay.
tell if it was filed in 2018 or 2019, though.
Okay, every day, if you look even on social media, it is very real that you see DOAs and you see the Narcan. How this money comes into, where does this money come in at? Because I believe there may be a second round I'm hearing of this money coming in, but if we got 8.8 million, where is this money coming in at? Who gets it?
I believe that it would go into the general fund
Okay.
as general revenue to the city. I'm not.
Because I was told that it wasn't, that's why I'm asking
Yeah, I'm
you.
not sure. That's really a finance question as to where they will book it.
Okay.
Frankly, I would love to have it be credited to the law department, but it'll be put into the city's budget at some point. And I think what you're referring to is that the settlement that's been reached in the opioid litigation, I think it's still pending final approval, but it's only a settlement against some of the defendants that were named in the initial suits that the city's filed. There are still basically claims that are pending against other defendants, and those defendants could settle, those matters could go to trial, we could get a judgment. There's no way to predict right now what the city may receive in the future based on the continued litigation.
And I get that, I understand that, but that 8.8, when we're reading about it, which is how I first, I remember when we had entered into the lawsuit, which is important because we have a serious drug problem. We have a very serious one. We cannot say that we have, and it's part of our crime. I mean, a lot of these people are using drugs or drug addicted, and we need to make sure how this money comes in. If it's for services, I would like to know how is it attached, and maybe Deputy Attorney Gurley or even you can get me some information. I would like to read up on that, please. How we can use it. What are the stipulations on those funds as they once they're released? I mean, if it's $1 million or if it's 8, or if they say, hey, no, we're going to give Flint 12. Let's give them over to, whatever it is, I would like to see how we can, how can we spend that money? Because there's a serious problem in our community. It's a very serious one. You can look on those Facebook pages, Keeping the Community Informed, Flint Police Operations, and you'll get found unconscious, slumped over, you will get that. I mean, there was three people in a vehicle. I believe one person passed away, but it was because, due to, opioids. So we need to address this and quit pretending like it doesn't exist and have the difficult conversations and have them in public, and we need to be transparent about it. Because I want to make sure that money, if we can get it to people and in programs, we need to make sure we're getting that money to people in programs. The next
Counsel-
thing I want to go over is, Reed was,
Madam Chair,
yes,
looks
Oh,
like she had.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman, oh, sure. Part of those funds will be restricted
Okay.
to opioid care and programs that go to that issue, and then a portion will also be unrestricted. As far as those amounts, we can get for you as we know it presently.
thank you, thank you. And I'm going to move on to, Reed was our marijuana guy, and marijuana is huge in a big topic. Reed's not here. Who was taking over Reed's place?
I will let the deputy city attorney take that question because
Because
she
Reed,
can
you could
answer that
ask him
very
a question
succinctly.
just off the top of your head, and he was that guy.
Yeah, I presently am assigned to the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, so if we have questions, you want us to send them or to you, then do both of you at the same time?
You can CC me just so I know that they're out there pending,
Okay.
but Joanne is more than capable of.
Okay. Because, and there's a lot of questions. I had a question, one of the members who normally is here called me before I came in, Mr. Del Maroney, about the marijuana and how many can we have, and he was using a comparison because they're medicinal as opposed to our pharmacies. So I will shoot my questions to you. Those were his questions, one of his questions, because Chris Del Maroney has a lot of good questions, though. But that was one of his questions about that, so I'll shoot the email to you.
Okay.
The wage study, did your office get a wage study?
I know that the Human Resources Department has done a wage study. I'm not sure if they,
You haven't received you haven't
you haven't
seen it?
received the
Okay.
the results
Okay,
yet.
so you're waiting for I think well, we all know everyone's underpaid, and you have to do it for the love of Flint. So I will be interested in hearing what the salaries are as compared, with wage study, because I hate to have people, when people come here, they get the experience, and they take that valuable experience, and they go work for another municipality. That has been a common trend in every department. On to what you said, Attorney Kim, there are other benefits. So is one of the benefits with working with Flint, are there any type of programs that helps to offset student loans if attorneys come here?
Well, yes, I mean, obviously, the city is a governmental employer, so that the city's, working for the city qualifies you for the public sector loan forgiveness program.
Say that again, a little
The
slower.
public sector loan forgiveness program, so
Okay.
it does qualify you for that in particular.
Okay, and so is that one of the benefits that you were speaking of, that attorneys come out of college, over 100,000 from college that you have in debt, that it'll allow some of those funds to be, it offsets?
That is one of the benefits that would have fallen into that category. There's a lot of reasons, both professional and personal, that a skilled attorney would want to engage in government service, both, for professional development and for, personal satisfaction and every reason in between.
Okay. Thank you. Grant-funded positions, and I'm going to send that to Lottie. I have not sent her my list, because I have not sent my list, because a lot of them will be callbacks with the questions. But grant-funded, you said part of that is in your department?
The only grant-funded positions, they're not technically in my department, but that we basically oversee for payroll purposes, would be the blight officer and the blight paralegal. As I mentioned earlier, the blight paralegal is currently double hatting, I guess, as part-time with the blight department and part-time with our district court prosecution office.
Okay. And then one of the questions that came up, which was about the blight person and blight paralegal. I know that Attorney Feaster is now back, and I know he was handling blight court. He did receive a new paralegal. I was told to share with my colleagues. He did collect all of the tickets going back from last August, and he is now working from August to now. So a lot of those are going to, we have to be patient because we lost what? We lost several months. What, about 8 months?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was starting to add on my fingers. Literally, so,
Frankly, I'm not sure exactly when the prior paralegal for the blight office resigned, so I'm not sure exactly how long it's been, but it's been at least since last fall.
right, so I was told that he does have those tickets, and they are going to be working on those. When blight court starts, you said that's not technically under your department though, right? We need to know when blight court starts. Last time I watched a blight court video, there was a person that actually was recording Councilman Mays mowing somebody's grass. And he took, I don't remember what street it was, he was mowing their lawn in some dress slacks, and he was getting the job done. So I would like to see that when that happens again, so we will know when blight court starts. But I know it's going to take some, they're going to have to come up to speed, losing those months. I do want,
Yeah, and they have started already.
Okay.
So I don't know if I don't believe that they're still doing most of their hearings via Zoom and remotely, so I'm not sure if there's like a way to go observe that.
I know there was,
directly.
yeah, I know I watched it on YouTube. I don't know how I got there, but I was there. I did watch it on YouTube, blight court. And I think that's, something, as we request blight in our areas, those tickets, I know after 3 tickets, I believe they don't give any more tickets. They have like a ticket limit, is that correct?
I'm not sure about that, because that would be probably a question for the new city services director,
Okay.
Arnold Brown.
I will ask him that. And as these departments, we kind of figure out who's over what now. Again, it's going to take some time. So those are basically all of my questions. Generally, anything else I always ask you. So Ms. Gurley, Attorney Gurley, I will be sending you some questions in regards to the marijuana. And I think that's, I'm sorry, I've got like 3 lists. I'm done with my my several lists. So I want to thank you for coming. Did anyone else have, Councilman Mays, do you have some further questions?
Real quick, Madam Chair.
You have the floor, sir.
Through you to Attorney Gurley, I did get that law as it relates to the request I had. Now, we can't allow drive-throughs from what I've read.
Well, the state allows it, our city ordinance.
Does not.
Does not.
We have to amend the ordinance, I guess. That's what he wants us to do
Yes.
on the drive-through. So I did get that.
Okay, great.
And it matched up with the language that he had gave me from his lawyer.
Okay.
So we might see if we can amend that to allow for the drive-throughs, but I did get that. Attorney Kim, I believe that the conversation I had with you earlier, as it relates to budget amendments, I hope it don't turn into nothing problematic. And I want to kind of try to avoid that problem, because if we don't amend the budget and do certain things, to me, the damage can be irreparable. That's just what I believe. The budget is key, and so I don't want no problems. Let me ask you this question, Attorney Kim, if I may, Madam Chair, through you to Attorney Kim. Have you ever looked at the Open Meetings Act handbook by Attorney General Dana Nessel?
Yes, I have.
Is it a problem for you to print that Open Meetings handbook out, or to email or direct a copy to this city council body?
I would be happy to send a link to everybody, I mean, or
Okay, I would be happy for them to have it. But can you pull it up now?
I could.
Well, are you opposed to pulling it up?
I guess I'm just conscious of the fact that it's close to 7:30.
Clearly, it's
The
close to
ombudsperson
7,
is-
so you are opposed to pulling it up.
I would defer to,
Why you
Council-
defer to the
Councilperson
chair
Burns.
and I'm the one got the floor? You do that a lot with me. You defer to council. I just want you to pull it up. Let's say you don't pull it up. Look at it later. Because on page 7, I'm sure you're familiar with MCL 15.263, subsection 2 and 3. Clearly, the Attorney General says all deliberations of a public body constituting a quorum of its members shall take place in an open meeting. Then it goes to a definition of around the horn. Have you ever heard of the definition around the horn?
I have.
And so what it says that when you've got sub-quorums, 2, 3, more, that this deliberating and decision-making among those folks outside of a meeting is around the horn. And I can bet you, now you can clear it up and you can go on about your business, or I'll bring the video in and show it. But if I'm not mistaken, you advised this council when you was trying to get that appointment that they could deliberate outside of a meeting in a around the horn way. Now, even our charter say 3 or more talking city business should be posted. You told them in your appointment process, and I think the word you used was they could deliberate outside of a council meeting. So I said, I'm going to look and see, because this is my 9th year. And I had never heard a city attorney advise a council, particularly a young council. Now, when I looked at the tape, Miss Liddell Lewis said she banking on you. Mr. Quincy Murphy said he was banking on you. I wasn't banking on you, because I had never heard an attorney tell council members they could deliberate outside of an open meeting. You still believe that?
Well, one, I believe that I don't think that you're accurately stating what was discussed or stated by me or discussed by the members at that time. Two, I think you're trying to stretch a specific situation to cover all situations. The round the horn example that's given in that Open Meetings Act, and Madam Chair, I know this really has nothing to do with the budget, but if
Yeah, and I would like to. I
It
would-
does have something to do with budget, because I don't want folks deliberating outside of a council meeting. And I've heard this council, Madam Chair, talk about operations, whether it was Blight, whether it was NSO officers. So I want to talk about what we're doing in this budget process. I don't want folks deliberating and doing amendments outside of council meetings. So I think it is relevant if we
Well,
can continue.
the situation that you were discussing or that you're mentioning essentially arises out of a case in which, I can't remember which municipality it was, but a municipal board such as this one, essentially to try to get around the Open Meetings Act, where, let's just say that let's assume that they had a body of 9 like yours did, and where it was 5 members was a quorum. They met in groups of 4 with one member changing the identity so that it was always a different group of 4 to basically, and they reached a decision as to how to deal with a certain circumstance. And what the court said in that case was, I guess to boil it down, the court said, this is so obviously an attempt to get around the Open Meetings Act that essentially this is clear, you're not allowed to get around the Open Meetings Act by doing this, and you're clearly trying to do that, so this is not permissible. Courts have, on the other hand, said that there are, that essentially council members can discuss matters among themselves as they please. They specifically gave their blessing, in fact, on a situation in which a council president or a council chair was polling members of that body on a one-on-one basis to get a sense of where the rest of the members were.
And Attorney Kim, I'm going to leave that right there because we have 1 hour for two more.
Sure.
So, and I
Madam
think,
Chair,
and we're,
Madam Chair, if I may.
yeah, if this can be
You said
quick, please,
you
Councilman
wanted to
Mays.
leave it right there, and I understand that. And I'll leave it right there, but the point is this. When y'all ask questions about operations and stuff, I don't interrupt and say, I want you to leave that right there. We're in a budget hearing. I've listened to y'all. I purposely didn't come in here to the end. And so what I want to do, I don't want to leave it right there. I want us to bring in the tape, and we can do this in a governmental operations meeting, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to show where this guy, if I'm not mistaken, told this young council that they could deliberate outside of a meeting, and then the evidence on the tape will show Liddell Lewis, I don't know if it was Herkenroder or Worthing, and Quincy Murphy gathered. Then when they recessed, after the meeting had been adjourned, they came walking in a group of 4 or 5 with this guy. He had told them they could deliberate and talk outside of a council meeting.
Madam Chair,
Right.
not only is that completely incorrect, it has nothing to do with this budget
Oh.
hearing. Can we please move on?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Thank you,
There
Councilwoman
was that,
Herkenroder.
well, you say this is an informal process. That's what you said. Now, when they talked about the operations, the NSO officers, different stuff, I want to make sure that I'm going to get with Ms. Winfrey Carter.
You wanna
We're
put it
going to
on-
bring the video.
You want it on governmental opera, because I'm going to
Yeah,
shoot an email.
and so Ms. Herkenroder was a part of it. She was a ringleader, and I can assure
Okay,
you.
Councilman May. Okay, I'm
Well,
gonna,
I mean,
Madam
I'm
Chair,
dead
I
serious.
did leeway,
When you
and then.
got a city
I
attorney
see
telling
what you're
folks they can
saying.
communicate and deliberate,
But this is-
you might not want it on the record, but it's on the record
Well, it is
now.
on the record now,
She
but this
can
is a-
laugh, you can play it down.
No, I'm not
It's
playing. I wanna keep
untrue.
the
I
meeting
asked that
moving.
the handbook from Dana Nessel be distributed to each council person through his department.
Yeah, and
then I
Councilman,
direct your attention to page 7 specifically.
Attorney
Now, what's
Kim.
wrong with that?
No, Attorney Kim, if you can make sure you can send that link, and I think he did give the MCL. If you can send the link to all of the council members, I would greatly appreciate it.
And I
I'm
want to
going your
direct their
budget
attention
hearing.
to page 7.
Page
and we
7.
can leave it at that and discuss it later.
Thank
But
you.
I don't like Ms. Herkenroder blocking, because she probably believed it. Oh, he said
Council-
we can deliberate.
Okay.
Liddell, oh, he said we
Thank
can
you, Attorney
deliberate.
Kim.
And they did.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are we excused?
You are excused. We have 1 hour to finish up 2 other. Thank you, Attorney Gurley
Point
and
of
Attorney
emphasis.
Kim. Yes,
Thank you.
yes, she's rating.
Herkenroder think it's so doggone funny that she giving wrong information by the legal department. And here go the ombudsman said, it ain't that funny to me, Ms. Herkenroder, and I'm going to make a point of it. If your young butt believes,
Point of order.
Yeah,
Point of
Councilman
order.
Mays.
He's out of
Now,
order.
come
She
on.
is young.
That's
She
out
knew.
of order. Yeah, but
Out
we
of
do
she
not.
knew. I
but
ain't
we
out of order.
cannot-
This is informal.
No,
we
you-
in
you
between
cannot-
folks. She
yeah.
over there turning red,
Yeah, but-
laughing like it's a
Councilman
comedy
Mays,
show.
to refer to
this
someone-
is the real life of council people. And if
The
she
next
believed
is
it,
Councilman Mays.
Please give him
We
a
have-
warning.
I
Please give
just
him a
told
warning.
him he was out of order. Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Lewis, this is informal. Go on with
Thank you,
that.
thank you, Ms.
You
Tanae
still
Dorsey.
struggling to try to figure
Excuse
out
me,
what's happening.
Councilman Mays. We're on another hearing. Thank you, Ms. Tanae Dorsey.
just
You are our ombuds
Please give him a
person.
warning.
You are our ombuds lady, woman, person. You have the floor, ma'am.
Ombudsman is gender neutral, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you all hear me?
He didn't complain and say that your button,
Hello? Maybe it's.
Is
maybe
it
it's not
up?
working. I don't think so. Hello?
oh,
Okay.
you're good. Yeah, pull it,
Ombudsman
pull it.
is gender neutral, so that's fine. It's a lot easier to say. Ombudsman is already hard. Ombudsperson takes it up to another level.
So if you would please tell us about You have the floor. This is budget hearings about your budget as the ombudsperson. You have the floor.
I don't really have much. The charter mandates $250,000 to be put towards the office of the ombudsperson. As far as I know, that is what has been put in the budget for the next budget season. So I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have. Obviously, we have some desires within the office, especially concerning the Ethics and Accountability Board and the Human Relations Commission. But right now, we are working with what we have. And so if you all have any questions about what those duties are, any questions regarding needs of that nature, I can definitely answer those. We have, since the inception, advocated for some additional funding. However, given the financial situation of the city, we do maintain respect for that. And we recognize we're in a tough position. Obviously, every department can get up here and ask for more money and ask for what they need. And will actually need that, need the additional staffing, need the additional funding. But like I said, we do want to remain respectful for the current budget situation of the city of Flint. And so with that, we are happy for the $250,000, but still do recognize that additional budget expenditures will at some point be required for the Ethics and Accountability Board and Human Relations Commission.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Mays.
Yeah, Madam Chair, through you to Ms. Dorsey. Ms. Dorsey, each year we've tried to give your department more money. Is that a fair statement?
I know that there was an amendment made to the budget last year.
And it didn't pass?
It didn't pass, correct.
It did not pass,
Right.
correct. And that amendment went to both the ombudsperson's office and the Ethics and Accountability Board, correct?
The amendment, as far as,
I know I sponsored an amendment for a meager amount, $50,000 for the Ethics and Accountability Board. You familiar with that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, and it didn't. We passed some stuff, but the administration never gave the money. That's what has happened with the Ombudsman's office. I mean, the Ethics and Accountability Board budget. You remember that?
Yeah, it was passed before I was appointed, but once I was appointed, I was sort of tasked with trying to mediate that, and I was told that it was never signed by
It
the
didn't get
administration.
done, did it? It was never vetoed. It was never signed. Now, as the ombudsperson, particularly with the relationship with the Ethics and Accountability Board, if that happens this year, I would lodge an investigation. See, what surprises me about the ombudsperson's office and the Ethics and Accountability Board, when we amend the budget and it's not vetoed, that particular amendment, that money should be released. How is your legal aspect of your office working? You relying on this city attorney, or do y'all have contract work out?
No, we don't have any outside.
You relying on this city attorney?
Yes.
How much do you need legally in addition to the $250,000? Or how much money would your office request in addition to the $250,000?
Well, I know I can't speak for the board.
You can
but
speak for your office.
I can speak for the office of the ombudsperson, but I can say I know that the original request for $50,000.
Let's concentrate on your office.
Okay. Well, for my office specifically, any outside legal representation or the need for would go through the Ethics and Accountability Board. And so, not in speaking for them, but when there were conversations about the need
Well,
for...
let me say this. Maybe they should be here with you, because when I look at the schedule, they're nowhere on the schedule.
No.
And if y'all gonna work like that, because I've attended y'all meetings, I've participated. Right now, y'all have requested the city attorney to come before y'all, correct?
No, not at this
Yes, they did. They voted on Attorney Kim to come before the Ethics and Accountability Board in the last meeting I was in. And they also made a note that 6 council people who had been requested didn't show up or communicate. The only 3 people who showed up to communicate was Burns, Jerry Winfrey Carter, and or Mays. That's what I heard in the last meeting I attended in the Dome. And I also heard that they were requesting Attorney Kim to come in because the decision or the resolution that he gave, the language was used in a resolution to get rid of me. And they kind of took offense to that. You don't recall that meeting?
I do.
And so I'm waiting to see in the next meeting, will Attorney Kim show up? That's an example of why I think he's conflicted.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is this a budget hearing, or is this his personal platform to talk about his case?
Is that question to me or to you?
Who are you directing that question to,
Madam Chair.
I cannot speak to what it is, but I'm letting it simply because he's saying, let me give my reason why. Because one, he's asking her, what does she need for her budget? And the attorney part is not in your budget, am I correct?
Correct.
It's not in there. And there is an attorney that is present, but I forget his name. Bosner, was it? I think he was there the last time.
Yeah, he works
So
out of the...
if we can,
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
go
if I
ahead.
may, I understand that Ms. Lewis might not understand the complexities of a budget. And she don't maybe understand how you tie the operations in.
Again,
We're trying.
point of order.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, let's stop with the jabs. Let's stop it. Are we here for the budget, or are we here to entertain this?
Madam
I mean,
Chair.
it is funny. It is
Did
because you're
she
too old for this.
jab at
Where
me?
are we going to go with this?
Well,
We're
Once
talking
you
about what I
jab
don't
at me, I'm going
understand.
to throw a right
Are
hook
we going to
at
talk about what I don't understand? Is that in order?
let's.
I know you don't
Excuse
understand.
me, Councilman Mays, please.
She the one that
Councilman
interrupted
Mays.
me
Yes.
and then
let
talking
me
about
say
a
this.
jab. She
Unfortunately,
threw a
Councilman
political,
Mays,
verbal
you-
jab, and
Council-
now I'm giving a verbal left hook.
Councilman Mays.
May
can
I
we-
continue?
Yes, and can we stick to, because we have less than.
And Miss
we still
Herkenrode
need
gets
to-
a kick out of when black folk argue. Look,
Okay, let's not take it through, Councilman Mays.
she just be laughing, and this is serious business, Miss Herkenrode.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Mays.
Madam
Mays.
Chair.
Oh, I'm gonna
Point
talk
of order.
about
it.
Madam Chair, point
What
of
is your
order.
point of order?
First, he made a ageist comment with her young butt.
She is young.
Next, he's making
Inappropriate.
racial comments.
She is white,
Inappropriate.
and she think it's
Very
funny when black folks
inappropriate.
Very
argue, and you
inappropriate.
help her.
Councilman Mays.
It's factual.
No, it's not factual.
Yes, it is. She is white.
Okay, but.
Madam
That ain't a
Chair,
fact.
It has
please,
nothing to do
You
with
think
color.
racism is
Madam
over. I
Chair,
heard you on TV.
Hold on. Well, you need to watch a little closer, Councilman.
I'm gonna keep
trying to
watching.
Madam
please-
Chair.
Racism ain't
Excuse
over.
me, Councilwoman Herkenroder.
I compel you to please enact the disorderly persons.
What'd
sub-
she say?
We don't have anyone in here right now.
What did she say?
She asked me to compel the disorderly conduct, is what she asked.
Man, look, I'm here, and I'm going to continue to ask her about her budget. If Ms. Lewis don't
can we
understand
stick
it and want to try to take a shot at my intelligence, I'm gonna clap back at her. I ain't
Okay.
studying
This
Ms. Lewis.
is-
I was
this is-
doing fine without her.
This has nothing to do with Miss Lewis, Councilman.
Well, it
Mays.
did. She
This
the one
needs-
interrupted.
This needs to be about the budget.
Miss
Please-
Burns,
Please address
be
the
realistic
question.
here.
Please
Please be realistic. I was
address
asking
your
her about her
questions to
budget with the
Council-
law department,
to-
and you tried to take the side of Miss Lewis.
This
who
has
had-
nothing to
There's
do
no
with sides. Do you have questions
Why is
for
she
the ombudsperson,
talking? You
Ms.
taking
Dorsey?
Herkenroder's side, Miss Lewis'
Do
side
you
now?
have, okay,
I was doing fine.
I'm
with
trying
the
to talk and you're talking over me, Councilman
I
Mays.
was trying to talk when
No,
you
you're
took
not.
her side.
Do you have
Quit
questions
lying.
specifically for the
was
ombudsperson?
asking her.
Please keep it specific.
I'm going to keep it
To the
specific
budget,
to her
please.
budget. I
Thank
told
you.
her to concentrate on her budget and not the Ethics and Accountability Board. I said they should be here with her. They ain't nowhere on the schedule. Who made the schedule, you or Ms. Brown?
We made the schedule.
Okay, then I would ask that the Ethics and Accountability Board and the ombudsman be called back
That would be on May 12th.
on May the 12th, because it handicaps her, in my opinion. So I'm going to get back to where I was trying to go, Ms. Dorsey, before, in my opinion, Ms. Lewis took a shot at me like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Councilman Mays, it does.
May I
that's not-
continue?
Yeah, but excuse me.
She
We're
did take
still-
a shot at me politically,
Yeah, well, I'm
and you
not-
trying to condone it.
No, what I'm asking you, sir, is to make sure
Is
we can.
don't say their name. I'm going to say their
Yeah.
name, I'm going to say their ward, and I'm going to describe who they are.
And,
Now, if I may continue without
let
you
me-
interrupting.
oh, no, and at this point, Councilman Mays, we're going to take a brief minute because clearly, you're taking advantage of things.
I'm not taking
Yeah, you
advantage.
are.
I had the flow.
Excuse me,
Miss
excuse me.
Lewis took advantage, and now
Excuse me.
you taking advantage because you power tripping sitting in that chair.
Listen, I don't want to be president of anything.
I
I'm
don't know
chairing
what
this
you
meeting.
want to be. I know you
Excuse
want to
me,
stop
can
me
you-
from
can you-
asking her legitimate
No, you're not
questions.
answering
You
questions.
and Miss Lewis.
No, you're not asking.
I was
questions.
asking to Miss
No.
Lewis interrupted. Now I'm dealing with you
Conduct available.
and how you acted. If I may continue, Ms. Dorsey,
No, do you have it? Yeah.
this is getting to be a little much.
You are a bit much, you are correct. You
Oh,
are being a bit
I'm a
much.
senior council
It has
person who done
nothing,
did
that
more
is a
budgets than
self-appointed
you.
title you gave
And Ms.
that
Burns,
to
out of the
yourself.
senior council person and did 8 or 9 budgets, you
And
ain't
you're
did
still
a
on the
one.
learning curve because
Now,
you don't know how to
might
do the
think I'm on
basic
the
part
learning curve,
of
but
treating
you
your
gonna learn
colleagues with
about
respect.
me. I don't
No,
care
we've
what
learned.
color your
You
glasses
learned
is,
about
you gonna learn about me. You and Herkin Road and Ms. Lewis gonna learn about me. Now I'm asking her about her budget and her legal budget, and here Ms. Lewis that interrupted, and here you condoning it, talking about he's taking a shot at me.
Councilman Mays,
What you want?
You're
you,
out of
you
order.
want me
You've
to
been-
leave?
you're-
You want to
you
call
are-
the police?
listen.
Whatever you
listen,
wanna
called
do,
the
I'm
news
up
to-
for
You
it.
did your photo op when you called them last week and
Let
told
me
them all to
say
show
this,
up.
it's gonna be
Do
more
you are
than a
issued a
photo
warning?
op.
Thank you.
It's gonna be
Let me,
more
excuse
than
me,
a
I'm
photo
talking.
op.
I want
No,
to
I had the
reading
floor. I
of the
was talking.
disorderly
Miss-
person
Miss
city's
Dorsey,
code subsection.
let me say this,
Any
Miss
person
Dorsey.
that persists in disrupting
Y'all
this meeting.
better investigate this.
Paul, can you cut his mic so I can talk, please?
Because what I'm gonna do is
You
make a
don't have
complaint
access,
with your
thank you.
office.
Any
Now,
person
you sitting here
who
witnessing this.
persists in disrupting this meeting will be in violation of Flint City Code Section 31-10, disorderly conduct, assault and
This is
battery, and
ridiculous.
disorderly persons, and will be subject to arrest for a misdemeanor. Any person who prevents the peaceful and orderly conduct of any meeting will be given one warning.
And
If
that,
they persist in disrupting the meeting, that individual will be subject to arrest. Violators will be removed from the meeting. Thank you. You have been issued one warning, Councilman Mays. I would love to keep you in the meeting, sir.
you
point,
ain't got the
Madam Chair.
love. Point
Yeah.
of
That was-
order.
that was the
Who got
second
the
warning.
floor?
That was the second
Excuse
one.
me. Excuse me. Thank you, Councilwoman Liddell Lewis. Do you want to stay on the budget, Councilman Mays?
I had the floor. I've been on the
Excuse me.
budget. Through you, Madam Chair. Have I got the floor?
You have the floor
Through
to ask
you, Madam
questions
Chair, to the
pertaining to the budget.
ombudsperson, Ms. Dorsey. Did you understand my questions before I was interrupted about your legal budget? Did you understand them?
Yeah, would you like me to respond?
Yeah, before I was so rudely interrupted. I'm glad you the ombudsperson to witness this. Because if I was talking to you and you understood my budgetary questions, I wish you would proceed. Because I ain't up for this nonsense.
Can you answer the question, Ms. Dorsey?
Miss Burns.
I'm not talking to you, excuse me.
There have been conversations with the Ethics and Accountability Board for funding to have a retainer.
Who
for
is
any-
they?
There have been discussions.
Who?
With the Ethics and Accountability Board.
You say they?
No, there has been.
There has been,
Yeah, so
okay.
there's been discussions about potential need for outside legal counsel.
Among who?
Among the Ethics and Accountability Board.
Themselves?
Yes,
Okay.
and so that was one of the reasons for the $50,000 request for their budget. That was initially approved by previous council. However, it was never signed by the administration. And since that point, there's been no further movement on additional funding for the Ethics and Accountability Board specifically, outside of the Office of the Ombudsperson's $250,000 budget.
I'm going to bring a resolution like I do each year for both the Ombudsperson's office and the Ethics and Accountability Board. I'll bring those amendments. I'm asking you, aside from them, as I was attempting to do before, seemed like all a little minor hell broke loose. What do you and your office need and or request? Is somebody handicapping you from telling me on this council and others what you think makes your office work in addition to the $250,000?
No, there's no individual that's handicapping. We have, on a previous occasion, submitted a sort of draft budget to council as to what needs we have. And quite honestly, at this point, it's just really getting the additional funding for the Ethics and Accountability Board and for the Human Relations Commission. Right now, the Human Relations Commission is operating off of a grant from the Mount Foundation. And so we are very grateful that the city was able to obtain that. However, it is a 2-year grant. And right now we're in strategic planning for the Human Relations Commission. But unless it is extended by the Mount Foundation or we are able to obtain another grant, there will be no budget for the
What
Human
should
Relations.
that budget be? Do you have any opinion on that, or should we call the Human Relations Commission in on the May 12th callback day with the Ethics and Accountability Board?
So right now, I'm serving as their quote director, since I'm tasked with organizing the Human Relations Commission. So I think definitely the council chair, the commission chair, should definitely be present for those
Who is that?
conversations. That's Jamaica Patrick Singleton.
Jamaica. So I want Jamaica and at least Pastor Gilbert added to the May 12th conversation about the budget, because I looked at the charter as it relates to the Human Relations Commission. You got some problems with discrimination on this council, and that's the area that they serve. And I want to fund them, because some folks, whether they black or white, they think that we live in a peachy keen world, and race discrimination and discrimination of all sorts have disappeared. You're familiar with the charter as it relates to the discrimination clause?
Yes.
And have you
Councilman Mays,
noticed that?
this needs to be germane to the topic. This is the budget.
It is going to be germane, Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me to let me get to my...
No, I will not indulge you.
You won't?
I will not. Please
Miss-
keep it to the
Miss
budget,
Dorsey,
please. The budget, we're talking numbers.
Do your
and-
budget allows you to investigate all of the claims that may come before you, including discrimination?
That's
How
not
many
a budget, that's a
complaints do you
provision that's in
have?
the charter and what her specific
Madam
job title
Chair,
does.
why are
So
you
you're slipping
interrupting
in,
me?
because you're slipping in
No,
stuff.
because I'm talking
No, you're
black,
not.
white discrimination
No,
and
know what?
charter, and you don't
Councilman
like it?
Mays, I had issued your warning. Now,
You can issue a warning,
yeah, I'm
and
gonna
you
ask
can
you to
have me
leave because,
arrested in front of the ombudsman for interrupting my train
Okay,
of
Councilman
thought.
Mays, please leave the meeting.
I'm not finna lead the
You're
meeting right
well,
now.
then we need to get the police. See, you've been warned.
I'm doing it in front of ombudsman. I know the categories of what she needs
no,
to
because you're not
administrate.
germane.
It's germane with
want
human
to
relations,
have your
it's
case
germane
heard,
with the
go
ombudsman.
to court and get an injunction. You know how
Miss
to do
Burns,
that.
why
This
are
is
you
a
acting
budget
a
hearing.
fool
This
in
is
this
not a
meeting?
black and white issue.
Black, she
No.
deal with complaints dealing with discrimination.
No.
Just because you
We'll take
figure
a 5-minute recess because we want to do budget, and this is not his case. If he wants to do his case, he needs to get an
Ms.
injunction
Dorsey,
through the court.
You
This
deal
is the
with
budget.
discrimination
It's a 5-minute
just like
recess.
the Human Relations Commission.
I already
Is that a
called you
fact?
green. The officer should
And
sit
so,
in here.
by you witnessing
I
this,
called him.
by me trying to get your line items and budget together, I'll make a formal complaint today. I'm not interested in
Paul,
Ms.
can you
Burns.
cut all mics, please?
I'm not
while we're
interested
on the
in Ms.
recess?
Burns telling me I can't check with your office and with human relations to find out what your budget need to be. Now, if she thinks she done overcame and discrimination
I don't need. Are the mics back on? Councilwoman Lewis, do you have questions?
Sure, thank you.
You have the floor, ma'am.
All right.
Just ignore that.
You know, because of the acoustics, I don't know if that's picking up, so.
They won't hear it like we hear it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Mrs. Ombudsman, the first question is, so what do you need to make your work better from the council?
Well, like I said, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you all have continuously heard staff is an issue. I am glad that the wage study was brought up because that's also an issue. You know, we all are aware that the city pays less than what a person could make in another position. And that's true for my office as well. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pay my staff what they are worth. The complexity of the work that they do, the dedication
point
that
of
they've
order.
shown.
What's your point of order?
I can't.
I know, and we're going to have to wait. And let me, because at this point, we should. Yes.
After she finishes, can we adjourn this one and go to the next one, since we're time constrained?
If a people, yeah, well, let me speak with, maybe we can put, because we still have to hear from Eddie, Mr. Smith.
Let's go to that one since we're time constrained. I don't know.
I don't know, do you
But-
have any questions, Councilman Pfeiffer, for the ombudsperson? You don't? Ms. Liddell, would you,
I just had one more, and that's it.
okay, go ahead and finish your
Well, I
question.
would just say definitely increases for staffing. an additional person. Right now, I only have one analyst who's assisting with looking into complaints. And so if I were to make a request, it would definitely be for increases for staff.
So when you say looking into complaints, just want to be clear. So are you referring to what type of complaints?
So the Office of the Ombudsperson, we handle complaints against the city. So any complaints that are against a department or a public servant, they can log that complaint with the Office of the Ombudsperson. We also have the Ethics and Accountability Board that we provide support for, and they look into complaints against ethics and complaints of charter violations. And then we have the Human Relations Commission, who are tasked with eliminating discrimination within the city of Flint and also reducing tensions within neighborhoods. And so I do have an analyst for that role as well, and she looks into those.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and go to the end. So looking at your current budget, would you be able to cut it by 10% if asked?
Quite honestly, I would not be able to cut it by 10%. Right now, our staffing, wages, fringes, all of that takes us pretty much up to that 250,000 point. We cannot do any reductions. And also the charter mandates 250,000.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then I'm just going to close out, and I did attend your meetings, but I want people to understand before we adjourn this part of it, the 2018 City Charter created the Ethics and Accountability Board to investigate complaints, public servants, and city agencies for failure to adequately perform services as required by the Flint City Charter. The board is also responsible for having the ombudsperson, which is you, and that position was cut in 2011 underneath the emergency manager. The new charter guarantees that a minimum that your office will get $250,000 to be funded. It's a minimum. We know it's not enough because there's a lot of issues that some complaints are legitimate and some are frivolous, but you have a lot. And then when a lot of them need legal, you need a legal opinion. So I get how that cost can change. But I want to apologize that during this session, because we do have some time constraints, that we were derailed, unfortunately. So if any of my colleagues have questions, please send them directly to the ombudsperson. And I'm truly sorry that during your session, we had to have this unfortunate experience. Thank you, Mrs. Dorsey.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Mr. Smith, as he comes down the Price is Right lane, we need to have the music going for that. Price is Right, where it
yeah.
says, come on down. You're the next contestant. Right. Thank you, Mr. Eddie Smith, and I know that you are our human relations, our HR person. Can you please give your name and title, and then you have the floor, sir, to tell us about your office.
All right. Eddie Smith, Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, City of Flint.
Is your mic on? Is the button up?
I think it was.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay. Eddie Smith, Director of Human Resources, Labor Relations.
So you want to tell us what your department does? You have like an opening statement?
Okay. Human Resources, we're the gatekeeper, I would say, for the city as far as hiring, training, and development, and policy and procedures. I think I'm on.
Paul, it is on. Can you not hear him? We can hear. Yeah, it wasn't on at first. It is, and I apologize, Miss. It is on now. We are. Thank you, Paul. Please proceed, Mr. Smith.
Okay, all right, no problem. Like I said, I think we're the gatekeepers of the city as far as hiring and training, promotion, and all those things that bring good employees into the city. We're responsible for benefits. We're responsible for all the workers' comps, all the bad, the good, and things that support employees. And we are also the people that employees go to when they're trying to take care of issues. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do.
Okay. And then I will now open the floor up for questions from my colleagues.
Okay.
Ms. Herkenrode, you have the floor.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Smith. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Do you have a copy of the budget in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I see that compared to FY22 and FY23, it looks like you've cut your supplies and operating expenses in almost half.
Yeah.
Can you just speak to that a little bit, please?
Sure. What we're looking at is, we were in the middle of the COVID, and there was a lot of expenses and budget items that we had to spend, and just to address the COVID issue in the city of Flint. We're anticipating that we won't have that level of expense because when COVID hit, we were creating everything new. We were developing things new. It was very cost effective. During that process, we learned, we changed, and a lot of things that we did then we don't have to do now, but still maintain a certain level of protection for employees and due diligence. So a lot of things we did externally, we can do internally now.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I guess my next question, well, first of all, before I forget, I do just want to say a tremendous thank you for working with the unions to be able to help bring forth that collective bargaining agreement and the new contract and the new support for the unions. I'm very excited to see that they're going to be getting the 2.5% increase. And I hope, and as I'm sure the remainder of my colleagues hope as well, that we'll be able to help continuing to raise wages so that we can keep attracting more talent. The last question that I have is in regards to the Civil Service Commission. It looked like in FY20 and FY21, they did not actually spend any money. For FY22, we don't have the actuals for that, but I see that the number remains the same beginning in FY22 and through 24.
Okay.
Is it just budgeted and just hasn't been used? Is it just, can you just talk a little bit about that? I'm very unfamiliar with it.
Well, it is budgeted and it hasn't been used, but it's been a plan to jumpstart that commission again, and that's kind of where we are. And and it's a matter of I would say putting the time together, creating the staff, getting all those things in place to do it right. But we haven't, not at this point.
So when you say staff, just for clarity for me, when you say staff, do you mean we would need additional staff members out of HR, or would, okay, is that a yes?
Correct. HR has been kind of understaffed for years, and we're trying to change what we do in HR. We are hoping to be fully staffed within the next year. We just hired a new staff person, and to help with recruitment. But yes, we're not at the staffing level that will allow us to take on additional responsibilities of the Civil Service Commission, and until we can get there, we can't adequately staff that.
So what I'm hearing you say is that this approximately $160,000 for allocations is just to help make sure if and when the Human Resources Department has the capacity that we are able to fully execute the Civil Service Commission.
Correct.
Okay, just
Correct.
wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it, Councilwoman Herkenroder? Anyone else? Councilwoman Lewis?
Sure. So I have my magical 2 questions, but I'm going to start with this one. Do you handle the grievance procedure between the union and administrations?
Yes, my department, yes.
Okay, and so can you explain the process?
The process?
I mean, I guess how?
Normally, a grievance is filed by a union president, and an employee will bring in a grievance to the attention of the union. The union would usually call us. We will discuss it. So it's not, before it gets to the point of being a grievance, we have sat down and tried to work out this issue before it becomes a grievance. And so HR is working not only with the department lead, where the grievance started, what it's about. We're investigating why do we even have a grievance, and try to resolve it before it becomes a grievance in writing. If we can't resolve it at that point, the union president will get involved, or the union lead will get involved and present a grievance for discussion with Human Resources. At that point, we're still trying to resolve it before it becomes a grievance, and we'll take a look at it, and we will make a decision whether it is, in HR's point of view, whether it's a bona fide grievance or it's not.
Okay, so hearing that, like you said, the budget is very tight, and we are definitely underpaying a lot of people for their skill set. So could you afford to take a 10% cut? Do you see in your budget where you can shave 10% off?
Well, if you
If
take a look at our budget right now, you can see where our projected budget, proposed budget is less than what our adopted budget for 2022 is. We're always looking at ways to cut, but still maintain a high level of service. But when you're short-staffed, and one of the things we are, trying to do is change the way human resource responds to employees. We're trying to update our policies and procedures. We're trying to do a lot of things, including getting a new HRIS system that would allow us to timely respond to issues and policies and processing, onboarding and offboarding. So it is we're constantly looking at cutting. I can say, yes, can we cut? Yeah. Can we give the same level of service as we're staffed right now? No, we could not.
Okay, so my other question is this, and this will be my last question, Madam Chair. So are you all do you have any programs in place where you are training interns to help out with the labor shortage, and then I guess having them on the career track to work for the city? And are you in collaboration with any other, I'll say college or even high school? Because I notice a lot of our positions don't require a college degree.
Right. We started our discussions with Mont Community College as far as seeing what kind of program we can put together that will help us not only recruit people right out of college, but how we can get programs started that can expose students in college to the city. We're constantly looking at ways to bring in students or interns into our city. The problem we have is that a lot of students now are coming out of college. It used to be you could get a student in, and just for training and experience alone, you could get them into a program. But now that we're competing with other institutions, that these students are getting full-time jobs. They're out there getting jobs that are paying money even for internships and training. So we're competing. We're looking. We're trying to put together programs with any institution, whether it's Mont College, University of Michigan, or any other program. So, are we fully where we want to be? No, we're not, because we've been so understaffed. We're trying to keep up with what we currently have as far as onboarding, but that's part of what we want to do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lewis. Mr. Pfeiffer, would you like the floor, sir?
Yeah, thank
You
you.
have the floor.
Are we utilizing any third-party human resources software to help streamline any of the processes?
Not at this moment, we're not. That's exactly what I'm
Have we
talking-
looked at it?
Yes, we have. Matter of fact, we've looked at least 2 other companies. We haven't started the bidding process yet, which we will be starting. We did secure funds, a grant, to help pay for that. And so we are looking to do that within the next few months, get an HRIS system, which is an HR support system on board here at the city.
What potential cost savings would that be? Would that be keeping your staffing level at it is currently?
Tremendous. With an HRIS system, not only would our onboarding process speed up, our retention process, I think, will be there too, because it'll allow us to address the retention issue in real-time fashion. It will help our managers, our hiring managers, deal with day-to-day issues in a timely manner as far as new hires, onboarding, offboarding, It'll do all those things. It'll help us track those things. They're not running down looking at hard files. They'll be able to access files and access applicants real time right today. The system will free up the time we need to do the things we're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, we're looking at that, and hopefully we can get that in place in the next few months.
Is that part of this budget or the previous budget?
That is part of this budget.
That is part of this budget?
Yes.
What is are we self-insured for workers' comp?
Yes, we are for workers' comp. When I say self-insured, we want to get them back to work as soon as possible.
So what is our workers' comp exposure, and how do we, is there anything that we can do to minimize that?
Training. And I say that realistically because I think if we can train our managers of our employees how to recognize issues that will cause workers' comp problems ahead of time, then we can, I think, put a dent in that. I do.
Is there, I'm looking at all the ancillary costs that goes along with human resources, and I know that there's programs and there's certain things that we can do to something that might not necessarily be a line item on the budget, but it goes to the overall cost of doing business. So if there's training programs or whatever to help minimize those other costs that are not necessarily in bold print on a budget, would those, I know that you're constantly doing that and looking for those improvements, would that be coming from a budget amendment during the year if you did find a certain program?
I think yes, I would say it would. What we're looking at doing is currently we have in our budget dollars that will allow us to do training of leadership mainly, how to manage people, how to manage realistically, and look for those issues that may cause workers' comp or other issues. So we're doing that. We've got things scheduled. We've been doing that for the last few months.
What type of leadership program have we been? Have we tried like the DISC program or anything like that?
I'm sorry, the DISC program?
Yeah.
We haven't started it here, no. And I'm familiar with that program, but not the city.
Okay.
You know, one thing we don't have a lot of, councilmen, is training programs in place. And that's something that I'm a firm believer in that. And we've got a number of trainers that we just started signing up, I want to say, to do training for not only for leadership but for all of our employees within the next several months, and that's the goal. You know, is put those in place. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Pfeiffer. And I'm going to keep mine pretty brief because I understand the function of your office, the limited amount of people. In an ideal world, and I know that we are facing, and you know what we're facing, because we passed a contract that, you know, is going to add to our $15.8 million, you know, deficit. I don't know how we're going to have to cut someplace. And I would hope that, I don't know, you know, we give people a raise, that if we have to take that back by laying someone off, did we really give a person a raise? You know, for me, and that's my concern. They were due the raise because I believe they hadn't had one since they hadn't had a contract since, I believe it's in 1999 for the 1,600 to 17.
I'd say 2014.
2014?
Yeah.
Okay, and it was a very long time.
Yes.
But in an ideal world with your office, I think you do a lot, and there's a lot of training that could be utilized. How many people would you, at a capacity that you would feel that would make your office run efficient? You have 5 now, correct?
Just 6. Just
Six.
hired someone. Yes.
Oh, just hire someone?
Yes.
Okay, so in an ideal world, how many people would you like to see?
I would like to see a staff of about 7.
Okay.
7 staff. Yes. And looking at getting a new HRIS system in place really makes that workable, because HRIS systems like, you know, organization. It is timeliness. It is things you can document and files and stuff. Ideally, we'd like to one day get all of our files to be electronic so that anytime a leadership person wants to review a file or look at a file, they don't have to get up, leave their office, and come down. They can take a look at it online. So,
And that makes a difference. So in technology, bringing it up to date, we could use that in a whole lot of departments here. I mean, there is a lack of technology in City Hall, which, you know, most of us, I tell people, you know, you look at this council, when you come, we like PowerPoints, and you didn't have to do a handout, but this council, you will see, they're on their laptops. I think the prior council, you may have seen one person bring a laptop. So technology allows us to do real time, and they type a lot quicker than me. Because I truly, those two, many of them do.
Yeah.
And I always I don't leave without a laptop or an iPad. So when we talk about the functions of your office, and I know we have had, you are our, is it second or third? Are you staying, are you slated to leave or to retire?
I am not.
This year?
No, not this year. No,
Okay.
I'm not.
So you will be with us?
That's my hope.
Okay. Because we get people who come in and come out, and it's hard when you're replacing people with talent. And
Yeah.
you've been doing HR for how many years?
I'm afraid to say because I think it
Okay,
will
but-
age me. But put it this way, better than 25 in
Okay.
leadership. Okay.
Okay. And so losing your talent would be something that the city, we would need to keep you in place. What are some of the things that you feel that the council can help you with? Because I see you sit back there in the meetings, you're always right back there posted on that side by
Yeah.
the window.
Well, I think that, understanding what HR is about is one of the biggest help. Understanding the things that we're doing there and being open to suggestions. What we're looking at is, is it changing the way the city's operated for forever with their HR function. HR function's totally, antiquated. And when I say totally, we're coming up in the last couple of years. We've got a great staff. And I'm bringing on people with skills that can support not only the city, but just the departments itself. And that's, understanding the growth that it's taken for us to get there. We're not looking to do this in a number of, 3 or 4 years, but we're trying to do this as soon as possible in the next year or so, make the department different than it was when I came here. I'm committed. I'm here. I came to the city not because I had to. I came to the city because I wanted to. I grew up 2 blocks away from this community here, and I've been on, with corporate HR for most of my career, and it's taken me all over the country. I wanted to get back to the city of Flint and really get off the road and contribute back to where I came from. I'm committed. The staff I'm hiring, they're committed. That's the team I need to support the city. We're looking at every avenue to not only save money, but bring new products as far as training and development, work with our leadership people. And any of your leadership people, they can tell you, they can call me on the phone any time of night. The union people can call me on Saturdays. Ask Sam, he knows. He calls me Saturdays and Sundays, so.
Sam doesn't care when he calls people. If it's a question, he's calling you.
Right. Sam's like family almost. But we, but that's what it takes to take us to a different level of understanding and what we have to do, and as far as HR. And working with the union on this contract, it was tough. It really was. And we had difference of opinions, but working collaboratively together with the same goal and getting there and disagreeing along the way, but agree to disagree and work to make it right is what we did.
So is it possible, because the wage study, I believe you and I had a very brief conversation about it, can you send us, and I appreciate Mike Brown sending us a copy of the job titles and then the salaries, so we know who works in your department. I don't know, is Jonathan still in your department?
No.
We lost John, okay.
Long
Long time,
long-
yeah. So if you could send that to us along with salary, so we would be able to gauge and be able to, to be able to know. And then the position that you're seeking, what the position is for?
Sure.
You know, and basically what their title. But I know there's been a lot of turnover, and I know you'd even had people borrowed, it seems to be familiar, borrowing people from Hurley has been expensive for us to do. Is Deidre Roy still down there, or?
Deidre, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Dee's one of my recruiters, and, you know, she is that level of skilled people that I need there, and yes,
Okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I've known her a long time.
yeah.
Um,
And correct, and with getting someone from Hurley, we had a director of human resource, interim director of human resource from Hurley, and who's, you know, was there just before me, so,
Tell me, Mr. Tyree Walker.
correct.
Yeah, we can't afford him anymore.
No, we
mean-
cannot afford Tyree.
We cannot afford his wages. I'm
No.
sorry.
No.
His wage was so high that it may have been
Yeah.
a down payment on a car.
Yeah,
So, but his talent, I mean, you pay for what they say, you pay for what you get, or how it equates.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could please send us that so that we will have that.
Sure.
I want to make sure we're timely. We're at 8:24. I want to thank you for your time and sitting through,
Great.
through these hearings. Any more questions before we wrap up? Well, Mr. Smith, again, thank you for coming. We
No.
appreciate your time. It is 8:24. The budget hearings are concluded for the day.
thank you.
Paula, the mic's off. Now, yeah, I need to announce too that we have a Wednesday committee meeting and Thursday budget hearings. We have Thursday 5:30 budget hearings also. Thanks, Paul. Did you hear me, Paul? Do I need to say it again? Thank you.